Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at elithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to elithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and in today's class there's going to be explosions! Well, no, not really, but I've got to try to make these PHP classes just a little bit exciting, right? Anyways, we're going to be using something called the explode function in order to try to break down strings using PHP and turn those strings into an array. So one of the big things that you're going to be dealing with the PHP programming language is you're going to be interacting with pure text data. That text may be coming in from databases, that text may be coming in from files, that text may be coming in from HTML forms, and then you're going to parse the text, the string information that is coming in, and then you're going to do something with it. One of the issues you run into, though, is the whole question of how do you go about actually parsing that string information coming into your PHP script. There are a number of different functions that allow you to parse strings, and one of those functions is called explode. So what explode allows you to do is it allows you to basically feed it a string. So you can feed it a string, and that string can be anywhere from 4 words all the way to thousands and thousands and thousands of lines. And then what you can do is you can basically say, I want to turn parts of this string into values in an array based off of the separators that I give. So basically, if I give a separator of simply a blank space, then every single word in that string is going to be turned into an individual value in an array, and then you can parse based off of that. You can do for each loops, basically stepping through the array. You can do if-else statements based off of information then in that array, so on and so forth. But one of the interesting things that you can also do is with that separator, you can define a different separator other than space. You could do a separator as a comma, or you could do a separator as a period, or you could do a separator as something else. Why that's useful is if you use a separator value as a period, then basically what you can do is, let's say you have a whole book, or you have a really long string, right? So that string, remember, that string is all the text, but that's sentences and paragraphs and everything else just submitted as text. Well, what you could do is you could have the separator be a period, and then it would break every sentence then in that string into its own value for an array, and then you could basically do if else. You could then try to compute based off of that value. Or if you're going to be doing something such as dealing with database types or data types such as CSV files. So CSV files are where you store data from some kind of application in a comma separated value format. So you may see this if you've dealt with old-fashioned database systems such as ACT or possibly Outlook back in the day or something else. Many times you were able to export the data from that little database system into what is called a CSV format. Then you can import that CSV format into a different application. Well, by using something like explode, you could actually then parse a CSV file. So if you know that all the values are separated by commas, then when you import that string into your application, it will then know that, again, everything in between commas, that is its own value, and then it can do something based off of that. So that is why explode can be a very useful thing. Again, not only are you able to break strings into arrays, but then you can define what the separators for values are, and then have those whole chunks. So you could have sentences, full sentences, you could have individual words, you could have CSV, again, comma separated values, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to be showing you today is how to use explode in order to turn strings into arrays based off of what that separator value is. The first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to go over, I'm going to show you my demonstration, and then we'll go take a look at the code itself. So here we are at my demonstration machine. Again, the demonstration machine really doesn't matter. All you need is a web browser that is able to connect to your web server. So my server is at 10.0.1.10 and is able to be able to read and run the script that you have. So this is explode.php. So up at the top, all I've done is echoed out the string that we're going to be interacting with today. This is a string that will explode in this project. Play around with it, see how separators work. So basically, this is the string that we're going to be playing playing around with. The next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a var dump. So I'm using the var dump function to just dump out all of the information in the array variable that we've created. At this point, I've done a separator for the space. So basically, whenever there is a space, I'm using that as a separator value. And so what you can see here is it's turned basically, this string that we gave it, every single word is a different value in the array. So this is what we see when we see the var dump. And then all I've done here, again, just to hammer home the point that these are all now values in array that you can interact with however you want, is I've done a for each loop. Basically what I've done is I've looped through this array, every single word in the array I printed out and then did a break, so it goes to the next line, right? And so again, this is one of those interesting things that you can do with something like explode, is you can turn a string into an array, and then you can transform how that string is actually printed out on the screen. So this is the final example. Let's go over and take a look at the code itself. So here we are on my server. Again, I'm using Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. I'm using the desktop version, the graphical user interface, just because it's a little bit easier for you folks to visualize what's going on. Everything that I'm showing you today should work on basically any distribution, any version of Linux. I am using VS Code to write out this code just because it's a little easier, again, also for everybody to see what I'm doing. So with this, all we're going to do is we're going to open up the PHP script like we normally do. And then the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a nasty old string. So we're going to do $string equals, and then we're just going to give it a string. Basically with this string, things that I did is I put commas in here so we could play around with commas as separators. I put periods in here so we could step around with periods as separators and that type of thing. So we'll be interacting with that later, and I'll show you how that separator works a little bit more. So basically we're going to have this string here. Again, the string could be inputted. This could be a line from a CSV file. This could be, something that comes from a database, so on and so forth. And again, with this string, when you think about a string, you're not talking about a sentence, you're not talking about a paragraph, you're just talking about any amount of text that gets dumped into the value of that variable. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this string into an array using the explode function. Explode! Okay. I try to make this stuff exciting. Come on now, I'm trying to make it exciting. It's kind of boring. I admit it, coding's kind of boring. But anyways, so we're going to create a variable name called $string array. Basically, so we're just going to take that string, we're going to turn it into an array. We're going to make that equal to, and so we're going to use the explode function, open the parentheses. And then basically what we're going to do here is we have the double quotation marks. So we have the double quotation marks, and then whatever is in between the double quotation marks is going to be the separator. So you will notice right now there is not, well, that's not true. There's a blank space in between the double quotation marks. So it's important to understand, if I did this, that would be there is nothing between the double quotation marks and you would run into a problem. This means there's a blank space in between the double quotation marks, and therefore basically it will turn every word into a value in the array. So again, that's an important thing. Like there's a difference between nothing and nothing. Nothing is not always nothing, right? This is nothing. This is a blank space. Those are two entirely separate things. So anyways, so this is the separator. When you do the double quotation marks, whatever is in between the double quotation marks is the separator. If you do this, basically nothing will happen. If you do this, then space will be the separator. You're then going to do comma, and then you're going to feed it whatever string you want to feed it. So we're going to be feeding it this string. Then the first thing that we're going to do is we're simply going to echo out the string. So again, from a troubleshooting standpoint, we just want to echo this out. Make sure that we're dealing with the variable that we think we're dealing with. Then we're going to do echo break break. So we're just going to break. So there's a space in the lines. Then I'm going to do a var dump. Again, var dump is a very valuable function to verify that the array that you're dealing with is the array that you think you're dealing with, right? So we're just going to do the var dump, then we're going to do break break, and then we're going to go through a for each loop, string array as word, and then we're going to echo out whatever that word is or the sentence or whatever else. We're going to do a break line, and we're going to skip on down. So if we go over again, we take a look at the demonstration. This is where we're echoing out the entire string. This is where we're echoing out the var dump. This is where we're doing that for each loop and just simply looping through for all the words. So one of the first things that I want to do is I want to show you what happens if we don't put any separator at all, because I know somebody's going to do that. So we're going to do this, we're going to do file, we're going to do save. Then we're going to go back. We're going to take a look at the demonstration, and then when I hit refresh, and this is what we get. So again, that's very important to understand. There's a difference between a blank space and absolutely nothing. If you put nothing literally between those double quotation marks, this is what you get, and everything else obviously fails. So we're going to go back, and so now what I want to do is I want to put a comma. So let's say we're going to make the separator a comma. So every time we see a comma, everything before that comma is then going to be a value in the array. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit File, I'm going to hit Save. We're going to go back to the demonstration. Now when I hit refresh, now we see that array, when we do the var dump, we see this is a string, and then there's a comma that I will explode, and there's a comma in this project, play around with it, see how separators work, right? So now commas are being used as a separator. Then when we do the for each, we can see this is a string, then it prints out that I will explode in this project, play around with it, see how it works. If we go back, and instead of doing a comma, let's say we do a period, we hit File, we hit Save, then we go back, and then we refresh. Now we can see that it's separating based off of the periods, not off the commas. So this is a string that I will explode in this project, period. Play around with it, period. See how separators work. Basically, and then it finishes with a period. Then when we do the for each, then it's printing out each one of those. Again, the separator is now the period. So that's essentially the idea of how explode works. And again, the important thing here is when you explode the string that you're dealing with, when you come down to this for each, you could have some kind of if else if statement there. So when it's looping through, basically when it's reading it through that string, then based off of whatever conditions you put there, something can happen. So maybe when it comes across a word or a name, that can get dumped into a database, so on and so forth. So this is the basic idea of how explode works in PHP. A little less exciting than the real world, but hey, I'm trying to liven this up for you folks. So now you know how to make strings explode in PHP. Explode! Explode! I don't know if I say explode enough. Maybe it'll seem exciting. Sorry, this is why I always get confused. This is why I always get confused when people talk about being so passionate about technology. Is even when we got really cool words for things, it's always kind of boring. It's kind of like, yeah, that's how you explode something. Woo! Anyways, though, but in PHP, again, an important thing for you is going to be parsing strings, basically reading through strings and then doing something with the information in the string. And so using the explode function is a way that you can interact with strings. Again, it may be very valuable for you in things like CSV files, so comma separated values. You'll see comma separated values in like contact management systems. So when people, you take the person's name, you take the person's phone number, you take all this different information. Many times with the older contact management systems, you could export to a CSV file. So if you export to a CSV file, then you can create a PHP script to then parse, be able to read through that CSV file, and then put that information into this fancy, cool, new custom database that you've created. Again, a very important thing to be thinking about. If you're going to be creating invoicing systems, if you're going to be creating work order systems, if you're going to be creating contact management systems, is not simply that you build a system that itself works very well. But remember, there's going to be a lot of old data from old legacy systems. And if you can get the data out of those old legacy systems into your new systems, everybody's gonna be a lot happier, right? When the secretary and the CEO sit down to that fancy application that you just spent, a couple of months building, and when they sit down, all of the information that they put into the previous system is already there, or at least mostly there. They're going to be pretty happy campers. They're going to be like, okay, so all my information is here, and this is a hell of a lot easier to use. Yay, we're going to hire you again. Whereas imagine you come up with this pretty fancy new amazing system, an amazing system that can do very amazing things for the company. But then the secretary or the CEO sits down and they deal with a blank. Basically, all of their information is blank. They don't have any contacts. They don't have any notes. They don't have any of the information that they've been plugging into the old system for the past 10 years. I can tell you what happens in the real world. You know what happens in the real world? What you're going to tell the customer, what you're going to tell the client is that, well, All you have to do, it's going to be a little hard, but I guess you're just going to have to manually input all of the data from the old system into the new system. See, that's what technology professionals tell CEOs and secretaries and the whole nine yards. That's what we say. You know what actually happens? You know what actually happens? All the information is in the old legacy system. And so the user essentially just keeps using the old legacy system and doesn't really get around to using your new system. And your new system ends up collecting dust, and give it a year or so and everything turns into a disaster. So being able to take data from old systems, be able to input them into your new application that you've created is a very necessary and valuable thing. And again, with most of these old database systems, you can generally export to CSV files. And so with this, you can then re-import, or basically you can import into your new application, so that when the user sits down, not only are they dealing with your pretty new application, but they've also got either if not all, at least most of the data that they're expecting in there. So that's why things like Explode can be very valuable for you for other than non-obvious reasons. So with that, as always, I enjoyed teaching in this class. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos, or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year, and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.